Hi, I'm Sasha Connor, the CEO of Virtual Work Insider. I often get the question about how to encourage team members to turn on their video camera when they don't feel comfortable on camera. I completely understand that people are all different places on what I call the camera comfort curve. When I went remote back in 2010 as a marketing and business leader at the Clorox company, video conferencing was very new. And oftentimes I was the only one on the screen in the room. And sometimes my face was even the size of a full wall in the room because of the size of the screen. And as a huge introvert, that was very uncomfortable for me. But I quickly learned that if I didn't have my video on, that it would be very easy for others in the meeting to forget I was even there. So I'm very in favor of having a video flex culture within your team. So knowing when to use video and know when it's okay not to. But if you have somebody on your team that's not comfortable on camera, I would first ask them why they're uncomfortable, since how to encourage them may be dependent on their answer. But here are some ways for you to encourage them to start using their camera, depending on what they say to that question you've asked them. First, I would provide some context as to why using video is important. So, for example, using video to get context in the communication is so important. So I'm a big proponent of using video because it provides so many more contextual clues. So we know that so much of communication is more than the words that we say. 55% of communication is body language. So the video helps to fill in those gaps. Another reason that using your camera is important is because it is a tool of influence. It actually will help you overcome the distance bias and recency bias that can happen in an actual virtual or hybrid meeting. When we have meetings in person, we know to take a seat at the table, not in the corner. And if you're in a virtual meeting, if other people in the meeting have their cameras on and you don't, it's as if you've taken a seat in another conference room down the hall. I've facilitated or participated in over 10,000 hours of hybrid and virtual meetings. So I know as a facilitator, it's really hard to keep people included if they don't have their video on. And as a participant, it's hard to influence when your video is not on. Again, for that same reason, people forget that you're even there. And sometimes it's not even enough to have your video on, depending on the video conferencing software that you're using. You may need to actually speak up to be seen so that your video comes onto that first page of the squares that people are seeing on the screen, and that you're not on the second page, or your video or your name is not dropped to the bottom of the screen. So once you've explained why to use the video, another important piece is to explain how to start feeling more comfortable on video. You may want to suggest that they start to practice. So practice an environment where they feel safe. So maybe that's just one-on-one with you if you're their manager, for example, or then move up to a smaller group that they feel psychologically safe with to turn their video on. We also know that seeing yourself during video chats constantly in real time is really fatiguing. That's where a lot of that Zoom fatigue is coming from. And it can feel really uncomfortable to watch yourself over and over again all day long, and you can become more critical of yourself. So there are a couple things to think about. One is to teach your team member how to turn off their self-view in the video conferencing software that you use, or just simply suggest that they place a sticky note over their self-view so that they're not watching themselves. And really, we should be watching everybody else's video and not ourselves when we're talking, because we want to see what their feedback is to the information that we're sharing. And then you could share with them how to create those virtual backgrounds that I mentioned earlier. So if they're worried about what we call location shaming, if they're worried about showing what's behind them, show them how to actually add a virtual background or how to blur their background. And then lastly, set some expectations. So if you're going to have the video call, give people time ahead of time to prepare. So tell them that the expectation is that they be on video for that specific meeting, and perhaps even helping them understand what the expectations are for what they're going to be dressed in for video meetings whether that's an internal meeting, whether that's an external meeting with clients. It's amazing how many times when we've been working with teams and companies where employees actually ask, what should I be wearing on screen? And really that has to do with your company culture, the type of work you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So set some of those expectations for your team. So to wrap up, it's important to ask questions about why people are hesitant to use the camera, and then talk to them about why it is important to use it in some circumstances and how they might be able to get more confident and comfortable being on camera.